Rock and roll. The stream is officially live. Hello. I am Allison Zmuda, and I am absolutely thrilled to have Greshma hanging out with us as part of our LinkedIn Live series around the idea of curriculum storyboards. So, good evening where you are, Greshma.
Good evening. I'm from India, and it's 8:30 p.m. here.
Absolutely. And so it's a balmy 10 o'clock in the morning where I am in Virginia Beach. And, one of the interesting parts of continuing to be in the LinkedIn community is starting to connect with people that are from all over the world engaging and interacting with ideas. And so I had an opportunity, Greshma reached out to me based on the book that we wrote, Curriculum Storyboards. So Streamlining the Curriculum. And Greshma actually read and reached out to me to really describe something that really felt like it resonated and moved her. So Greshma, if you can start by introducing a little bit of who you are in terms of background. You have a fascinating profile and work in education in India and perhaps across the world over the past decades or so. So if you can introduce yourself, and then let's dive into what really is resonating with this book.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are watching this video, LinkedIn Live. And those who will be watching a little later, Namaste from India. My name is Greshma Momaya, and currently I am the founding principal of Prarthana.in World School, which is located in Bangalore. I've been in the education industry for last 17 years now. Started my journey as a teacher, then a middle leader, and now the head of school. Yes, I have trained more than 2,500 teachers and worked on different types of curriculum back here in India. And when I got to know about the Streamlining the Curriculum book, uh, I think a lot of your previous events that happened, and that's how I got my hands on your book. And and I read, and this is the right time for me to write the book, Allison, because my school is starting in the next academic year, June 2024. And right now, me and the school and my school owner, we are working on the curriculum and pedagogy of the school.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
yeah, so it is like it was the right time for me to actually get my hands on your book.
Oh, lovely. So, Greshma, I also want to clarify that there are folks that are watching us from around the world. So, again, if you have a question for myself or Greshma or some of the ideas that we're going to be interacting with over our LinkedIn Live, please go ahead and enter that into the comment, whether it's an insight or a question. It really helps continue to drive the thinking forward for not just Greshma and I, but also making sure that it is relevant and live. We're also streaming through YouTube and Twitter. So again, welcome for people that are joining us there. So Greshma, I really wanted to sort of think about some of the dynamics in schools in India that actually made this, from your words, a must-read book for educators in India. So what are some of those dynamics that you can give us some insight on?
Sure, I'll start with the challenges first, and then what kind of made me think that it should be a must read for every educator. And there are certain reasons for it. And it starts with, in India, the franchise option where anyone and everyone can start a K-12 school or a preschool is very common nowadays. So in this process, what happens is someone in the head office is writing the curriculum, and a teacher somewhere in other part of India is actually implementing the curriculum. Yeah. Now what happens here is, and it this is happening because, or this is a common practice because of certain challenges that we come across while designing curriculum or while writing lesson plans. And I think the most important thing is the template rigidity. Templates are too rigid, and it just cuts the flow of the creativity of a teacher, right? So that was one thing that I came across. And I do not see, the teacher has a lot of ideas in her mind, but because of the template rigidity, I don't see it in the lesson plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And
so Greshma, let's stop there for a moment, because I think what you're raising to the forefront is so true for not just educators in India, but all across the world around the notion of template rigidity. Something that Heidi Hayes Jacobs and I started to imagine, the idea that a curriculum needs room to breathe, right? So when it feels too scripted, too structured, too enclosing, it doesn't have that kind of energy, that life force that only the teacher with her students or his students can actually bring to bear. So I think it's another interesting dynamic of how can we continue to grow that capacity in some of the work. So again, it was just such an interesting, powerful idea.
Yeah. And I think secondly, the second point is the lengthy lesson plan. The exhaustive lesson plan. Even as a teacher, it took me so much time to only write the lesson plan that I had to compromise on the implementation of the lesson plan. And as a school leader, when I was reading these lesson plans, it was even more exhaustive for me to even read and understand the lesson plan. Yeah. So I think the lengthy lesson plan was the second issue that I have come across in my experience, and even when I interact with other educators. I think the third point is also the relevance of the template sections. Not every section is relevant to the unit or the topic that is happening. Now in this process, what happens is, for example, if it is a technology integration is one section, right? But then the nature of the unit is that you cannot integrate in this particular topic. So the teacher will put it blank, and the school leader who's actually reading the lesson plan thinks that the teacher is being lazy and not filling up the lesson plan. So both ways it didn't work actually. Sometimes teachers are also just filling it up because the lesson plan has to be filled completely, but there's no relevance to it.
So it's also so fascinating, Greshma, and that the idea of what the lesson plan template or format looks like. One of the most important parts for us as authors, and also what's sort of resonating and fascinating for you, is the idea that a lesson plan template should be sort of organizing the thinking and the actions that are happening in the classroom. I remember speaking with a teacher 2 weeks ago, and she said, our lesson plan template takes us longer to fill out than it does to actually teach. And so when you're trying to make sense of that level of due diligence that teachers are doing, because sometimes we're very good at filling out forms, but the forms should actually help elevate the thinking and the imagination and the wonderment, as opposed to feeling like it's just a bureaucratic exercise that actually makes the learning less likely to have that energy.
Right. So I just feel that relevance is absolutely not there. So there should be a flexibility for teachers in terms of template of the lesson plan. Many a times there's no alignment of learning objectives in the lesson plan, So that is also one thing, the complete alignment is missing, and even the curriculum units and the classroom activities feel like those, isolated islands. Which are not connected.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I think the one important challenge that even was mentioned in your book was the empty vessel approach, where you turn on the faucet and, we are just filling in the information. That is so true, because, we are just giving information and children are just absorbing the information. And I think because of all these, and there are a couple of things, like even the differentiation instruction, that many a time templates do not have space or that provision for teachers to really have cater to different learning styles of children. The
Yeah.
assessment integration is missing, and of course the time management. It takes so much of the time, like you said. And I think one more thing that is missing is where teacher do not get, there's no section where teacher is actually reflecting.
Mm.
you know
Yeah.
what happened, how did my lesson go, how did my lesson plan, was it in the flow, was it missing? There's no space for teachers to reflect. And because of all this, there are many schools who prefer buying the curriculum, purchasing the lesson plans, and not creating the curriculum
Yeah.
for their school.
Absolutely. And again, if folks want to type in an insight, a comment, a question, please go ahead and do that regardless of what platform you're on. Having a powerful conversation with Greshma from India, and the opportunity for her to begin to design curriculum and pedagogy for your school that's going to be opening in next year. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when we're starting to lean into the idea of reflecting, I want to talk about the notion of reflecting and connecting. So I think one area, Greshma, you've been really insightful on is that there is a level of rigidity with templates. So it's templates that perhaps are designed within your school on behalf of you, or potentially it's something that is a purchased program that you are inheriting as an educator. And how do we begin to actually do some level of streamlining from there? So I think it's a place where many people from around the world find themselves in. So what's some insight you have around that particular territory? What should educators be empowered to do if they're inheriting something that's been designed on their behalf?
So I think what you can do is at least think where you can tweak a template a little bit, or even if you're getting a ready reckoner in your diary, I think you can create a template that gives you more space for yourself to write down your thoughts. Yes, you can follow the ready reckoner, but I think you can break down your lesson plan into the sections that you want, right? So I think that is one thing that teachers can do it, even if you don't create as such a template. Just putting a headings and writing your thoughts on whatever ready curriculum that you've got, I think that will make a lot of difference for you, and you don't have to blindly follow the curriculum that is given to you. I think that is what is missing. Everyone just blindly follows the curriculum and the lesson plan.
And so the other interesting piece is that the power of doing that not only as an individual educator, but doing in consultation with the collaborators you have on a grade level team when you're teaching 8-year-olds or 9-year-olds, or starting to think about that as a broader school endeavor. Streamlining in the way that Greshma is describing is much more powerful when it is a concerted, coordinated effort, as opposed to individual teachers deciding different things. It's not just a template issue. It's also a vertical articulation issue. So the opportunity to make sure that the choices that I'm making as the teacher of science for 11 or 12-year-olds is done so mindful of the fact of who I'm inheriting from the year before and who I'm moving my students on to in the year after. So I think that's another part of this dynamic. So yes, we are inspiring that level of creative thinking, but doing so with mindful of the fact of the ripple effects.
Yeah, I think at the beginning you asked me why this should be a must read. One was, of course, the challenges that we face, but on a personal note, when I started immersing myself in your book, it actually, I felt that it's not a traditional educational resource, but it is more of, one on one. I am talking with a mentor who is guiding me. right? So it became that book because your formatting itself is done in such a way that, there is a learning target, right? So you know what is going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah,
So I'm hopefully showing this book somewhat visually. And again, Chrissy, if you can sort of create a clip that will add to the LinkedIn Live example, but it's really organized each episode. So it's episodic by nature because that's part of the narrative or the storyline. But each episode starts with a learning target and then gives you a frame of the journey that you're going to be experiencing within that episode.
Yes, so, like the engage, the examine, the act, engage was the introduction to your point, to your topic.
Yes.
And then examine was more of telling me why, why this needs to be implemented, or giving me more examples for better understanding. And I think the highlight for me from your book was act, because how in most of the curriculum books is missing.
Yeah. So we have a LinkedIn user. So if we can put that up on the screen, Greshma, for you and I to sort of process. This comment is from Murtaza, and she's asking, what strategies do I use to break down the curriculum to design for unit planner versus lesson planner? So I think if we can talk a little bit, Greshma, about sort of the approach from a curriculum storyboard and how that actually translates into that lesson plan piece. So I think the important part of starting to think through what is the 10,000 foot view of what each topic or unit is within the course. So that was sort of the initial premise of the idea of the curriculum storyboard. How did that resonate with you, Greshma, in terms of just additional clarification and summarization?
Yeah. So I think one thing that really, when I was, I think in the episode 3, was more about not working in isolation, not working just one unit at a time or one subject at a time. So from disciplinary moving to interdisciplinary, and that whole approach, and the example that you gave about the measurement topic for grade 2 really made me understand and help me break down that you cannot just teach science, you cannot just teach math. See, I'll tell you one thing very honestly. Yes, IB board now in India is now very popular. So we've heard the terms of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, but not every teacher works in an IB board, and not every student studies in an IB board. Yeah. So now in Indian schools also, we did not teach one subject separately. It has to be all connected. And one more point that connected, that resonated with me in terms of breaking down the curriculum or designing the curriculum is in the story format, right? The example for the math that you gave, like, what are we going to teach children this year, how it is connected to what they learned previous year, how it is connected to the next year that they are going to teach. So one teacher cannot design the lesson plan or curriculum alone. It has to be not just the grade level teacher, but one teacher, like if you're a grade 3 teacher, a grade 2 and grade 4 and grade 3 teacher have to work together. Because most of the times, I'll be very honest, like there's a line that says, no, if teachers find the interconnectedness of the topic, it becomes even more easier for children. Most of the times teachers don't know the interconnectedness of the topic. There's no connection.
Yeah. And again, I think what you're clarifying, Greshma, is so important. It's not only easier, but it actually is more connected, more meaningful. Students can begin to start to see the patterns. They can actually start to get oriented to problem identifications, because fundamentally any issue right now in the world is an interdisciplinary problem. We may silo it into a math classroom, but ultimately the most well-rounded way to treat this as part of this kind of interdisciplinary moment that may happen in parallel tracks, or maybe more part of an interdisciplinary experience, whether it's a project-based learning moment or a capstone experience, or Genius Hour, or you get the idea. So thank you so much for that question. And one of the things that I also want to sort of dig into a little bit more is the idea of the relationship between the curriculum storyboards, where we're describing one unit at a time, versus the notion of lessons. So the lesson planning concept that we had was called learning sets. So learning sets history actually was sort of our initial idea to write this book in the first place, that got superseded by the idea of streamlining both the learning sets as well as the curriculum storyboards. So Greshma, when you start to see the relationship between the curriculum narrative or storyline and the learning set, what are some commonalities that you actually are seeing or recognizing between those two areas?
Yeah. So you mean the streamlining of the curriculum using the storyboard and the learning sets?
Yep.
These two. Yeah. See, one thing that I really like about the whole storyboard approach is we all know how captivating the stories can be, right? For adult, for children. So I feel that even when I as a child, when I was taught history as a subject, the focus, I think, was more on remembering the dates, just remembering the events. But just imagine if the history as a subject was taught to us in a story format using the storyboard approach, it would have been more interesting for me, more engaging for me. Because when I was studying history, we were only thinking about okay, we have to remember these dates and remember these events and just the chronological. But we were not introduced to the story behind it or to the flow of the whole event, you know. So I think storyboard approach brings in that element in all the subjects, not just in history. Right? It creates a flow right from your early years up till high school, where everything is interconnected, just like the episodes of your book, how they are interconnected. I think when you implement the storyboard or you design the curriculum using a storyboard approach, it makes everything connected. And I think even the assessments, there is also a notion or a belief, or some people do say that when you try multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary, all these approaches, what we are missing out on is certain information that children need to remember. Yeah. But even your assessment gives those nice three tiers of layers of it. When you have information, you have skills, and you have application, everything in one. Right? So
so I think one thing that I want to continue to echo or emphasize that Greshma is calling our attention to is that when you start to lay out a curriculum, whether it's a curriculum that you're inheriting, whether a curriculum has been designed on your behalf, or it's a purchased curriculum, there is a massive amount of stuff. And really trying to figure out, to step back, not just as an individual educator, but in coordination with other educators around you, what are the stories that can be unearthed from this experience? Because when you're streamlining, I think this is the first and most important step, is that when you're streamlining, you're making deliberate choices as to what to cut out, what to consolidate, what to keep, and what to create, to make it so that it's a powerful, meaningful experience for the kiddos. So I think the streamlining is so important, not just at that like broader level for the curriculum storyline. It's also true for the learning set level. When you're starting to think about an episode, may be a day, 2 days, 3 days, but it's a journey that you're taking to break down what's the learning target that we're after right now, and how can we begin to use the idea of engage, examine, and act to make sure that students truly feel like they are navigators and creators of their own journey. So I think that is so incredibly important, Echo. I think the second part is, and again, I'm curious to see how this resonated with you as well, Greshma, is the lack of jargon in the curriculum storyboards and in the learning sets. So it's written to be designed for students, for families. The important part of iconography and photos or illustrations as an essential part of continuing to tell the story. So I think that's another really important piece from an audience point of view, that curriculum is moving away just from the sole territory of the classroom teacher and moving out into the light of day to truly be part of a more connected experience with school partners.
Yeah, I think the whole idea, especially when you, in the episode 2, when you are talking about the role of modern learners.
Yes.
Yeah, trust me, most of the schools in India have never thought about it. Because it's all about your mission and vision statements, right? Which are just put up in the hallways, in the offices, but like it is mentioned in your book of how important it is to redesign those mission and vision statements and make it, and how you can use it in your daily classroom activities.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So the I think that brings in the learner to the center of the whole story. Yeah, I think what we miss out on is, want to finish this portion, we need to finish this curriculum, cover this curriculum, there's a unit test coming, there's a semester coming, and irrespective of whether the learner has understood the topic or not understood the topic, we just cover the portion. Yeah, but in your approach, the learner is at the center.
Yeah, I mean, Greshma, what you're just describing, I call that as classroom wall art, meaning that it's posted somewhere in the room, but at the same time, it's supposed to actually have an impact on the learning practices within the classroom space. And so I think the powerful part of trying to figure out what are modern learner roles that potentially educators as well as community members have an opportunity to clarify and imagine together. But oftentimes it gets lost because it's not actually having curriculum implications. And so when you're starting to think about that, looking at trying to grow responsive, respectful collaborators, or trying to grow agile problem solvers, just because we do lots of problem solving doesn't mean we are actually trying to create that level of agility, efficiency, flexibility. So how does that change? How does that elevate some problems that are already happening in our classrooms? What curriculum choices rise up, and what curriculum choices need to be consolidated or eliminated? And so I think that's a small move or a small start as to what people can begin to use this book to begin to actually make sense of it in their own world. Can you talk about another smart step that actually sort of this book actually sort of created or imagined with you or for you, given the time where you're starting to make sure the curriculum is designed for your school?
So I think the genre selection, the episode 6, I think that is also something that at least me, I have never thought about it. Yeah. So, and your comparison, and I understood the importance of genre selection, because we all have, like the example that you've given, the analogy that when a writer is writing a book, they give you in different genres like fiction, non-fiction, poetry, and whereas when we are writing curriculum, we are not even thinking about the genre. So that was a eureka moment for me, where I felt that, hey, I've never thought about it at all. Like, topic based, unit based, how it should be. We are just stuck to one type of it, and I think the curriculums are just designed based on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's fascinating, Greshma, is you're sort of describing the impact that the genre focus had on you in episode 6. So I just want to clarify for people that haven't read the book yet, The notion of genre truly is an interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary one. So we focus on the primary genres of topic, theme, problem-based, issue-based, or case study. And when you're trying to start to take a look at how could I take a topic and start to look back and see, is it better framed as an issue or a case study or a problem or a theme? A topic, for example, could be solar energy, or a topic could be a particular moment in history in Indian society. Trying to continue to clarify as well of how that actually opens up the thinking so that you can use some of the same core information, but again, organized in a way that, number one, is more interdisciplinary in nature, and second, actually starts to bring in more authentic texts and formats so that kids can actually start to see the power and the dynamic of how school and the outside world are actually more continuous.
Yes. I think also if you're doing a topic based, how it impacts the learning, what kind of information learners get it. If you're doing a problem based unit, how it impacts the learning. I think that difference and that explanation also made it more clear for me, because till now we are only focusing mostly on topic based, right?
Yes.
But the idea that yes, some topics can go to problem based, some can go to case study, some can be topic based, so some can be theme based. So that for me was a very, very eureka moment for me, where I felt yes, we need to change the genre. You cannot give only one type of curriculum to children.
Absolutely. And when you start to imagine the genre and how we can potentially organize that through the curriculum lens, there are also assessment opportunities that also spark from that experience. So we have another question from Pramila. So again, if we could put that question on the screen, it's a sort of a comment that, again, Greshma, if you can sort of continue to give your insight in relation to that. So the NEP has mandated a movement from teacher-centric to pupil-centric to pupil-driven. The core skills are spelled out. Art, integrated learning, and many more points discussed herein are addressed. This is applicable not only to IB, but government schools as well.
Of course, of course. So NEP is the new education policy of India, which has addressed a lot of these issues that we have talked about. Like I was saying that the interdisciplinary mostly happens in IB school, but now even the Indian schools can adapt to it. Yes, it's been addressed, but the implementation might take a little more time. Where every school, every government school will be able to follow the interdisciplinary approach or storyboard approach. But thank you so much, Pramila ma'am, for commenting and clarifying it.
Well, it's also so funny because when you're starting to say this book is an essential read for all educators in India, when you're starting to see the comment that Pramila is adding to the conversation, it's fundamentally necessary. So again, I have background in personalized learning for over 10 years now. And so the notion of this being not just student-centered, pupil-centered, but pupil-driven. And so that's something else that I want to connect with you on, Greshma. I did a little bit of background reading on LinkedIn of your fabulous profile, and I started looking at examples of your feedback conversation and some of the insights that you had. And one of the insights that you had was having pupils begin to clarify the connections that they're making along the way. So the level of connection making, so it's not just the reflecting that teachers are doing, it's the active reflecting and connecting that students are engaged with as well, as a vital aspect of the curriculum narrative. Because as we start to imagine it, we can sort of think about it in our adult mind. but what's
Right.
the impact that it's having in real time on the students? So if we can chat about that for a few minutes, that would be absolutely fabulous.
Sure. So I think reflection is not just important for teachers, but even for children, right? And I think that is one of the point also mentioned in your book. And I feel if children have to connect their knowledge or their skills to the outside world, or if they need to apply, I think before applying, they will have to reflect on what they have learned. Yeah, most of the times the information is given, they got the information, the worksheet is done or workbook is done, and that's all. That's the end of the story, and then we go and write exams, that's all, right? But I think when you reflect of, okay, what have I learned, and yeah, also what I want to know more about on this information, when children are reflecting on this and how I can now use it in my home, when they are reflecting on questions like this, is when the actual application happens. And that's why when I read through the questions that were mentioned in the appendix D,
Yeah.
right, of the book, they were like really amazing, because even reflection is a very important element of the curriculum and the pedagogy that of the school that I am working in right now. In fact, we have a student journal where children will be reflecting daily, weekly, monthly, yearly on what they have learned, how they can use it in other subjects, or how they can use it in their at home, what they have learned. And the questions that are given in your appendix D, I will be using that for my student journal also.
Yeah. And so Appendix D is really having an opportunity that students are sort of having some prompts to help foster those connections. And
Yes.
it was developed with my fabulous partner and collaborator, Benna Kalik. So we actually started to think about this through the lens of the habits of mind. And so the idea is that when we're trying to grow the capacity of students making connections, we do need to lean into areas like metacognition and thinking interdependently, remaining open to continuous learning. And the opportunities, whether you are already immersed in habits of mind, or you're just starting to take a look at that, starting to hear and see some of those questions, it very much continues to resonate, not just with Greshma, but really starting to see how those questions can be part of the learning journey. Because I think from a curriculum narrative that we are doing as adults, we're opening up the portal for students to actually become the navigators of their own learning journey or learning story. So moving from a bureaucratic exercise, or what Greshma was describing earlier in our conversation about turning on the faucet or the spigot, and moving toward an opportunity that it's something that the kids actually are navigating, creating, synthesizing, sort of unearthing some of their misconceptions and ways of working. So hopefully that continues to help out. And again, we'll make sure that Appendix D, some of those prompts are in the notes of this conversation.
Awesome. That would be nice.
So Pramila is also suggesting that one more point that needs to be looked into is the need not to miss a learning moment. And again, I think, Pramila, what you're after right now is so incredibly important, that if we are so focused on the pace, we miss the moments where joy, fascination, wonderment, curiosity live. So when it's unearthed in a moment in your classroom, the opportunity to have the wiggle room, the space to let that opportunity breathe, even if it's just for a particular class period. It doesn't need to be sort of formalized into a curriculum, but that is something that's what we mean by having curriculum room to breathe. Same thing with learning sets. Your thoughts on this, Greshma?
Yeah, so I think when we are in that rush of completing the portion and completing the chapter, and there are certain children who are asking you more questions, but we are in a hurry. Teachers are also having less time, to complete the portion. So what happens is teacher is unable to really give proper answer to children, and that's where we miss out on the learning moment.
Yeah.
Right. The answer could be connected to the chapter, could not be. I mean, it is not necessary, it might not be connected to the chapter, but I think what we miss out on is the learning moment. The child would have definitely learned something from your answer. But yes, it's because our curriculums need a more streamlining, and it need not be more cumbersome, but we need just a little more clarity on what we are writing, what we are doing. That's what we need, and I think we'll be able to cater to and we'll not be able to miss out on these learning moments, is what I feel.
Yeah. And again, Greshma, this is such a special learning moment for me in terms of engaging and conversing with you. So any last thoughts or insights that you want to share?
There are many. There are many. Like the book is full of my handwritten notes and sticky notes and all of it. But I think one biggest strength of the book is whatever you are preaching in your book, you have implemented it through the formatting of your book. Yeah. I think that is the biggest strength of the book, that and giving us how to do it. Yeah, giving us very clear cut steps for every episode makes it a very special book for everyone to read.
Greshma, that makes my heart happy. Again, I'm imagining that Heidi right now is smiling as she is babysitting her grandchildren. But I think the opportunity of what you just started to clarify, we actually had to streamline our own book. The book was actually probably about 50 or 75 pages longer. And we wanted to make sure that we were clarifying something that actually we were delivering on that promise. So it's so helpful to hear from a reader's point of view that not only you appreciated the key components or the formats of the book, but also hopefully that the narrative friendly style in which it was written. So
yes.
But thank you so much, Greshma. It has been a privilege and a pleasure spending some time with you. And again, for folks that want to get the recorded video, definitely sign up on the Curriculum Storyboard site or make a comment in whatever platform that you have seen this in, and we will make sure that we get that recording to you. And one more time, Greshma, it's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for writing the book. Give my regards to Heidi also. It was a fantastic book.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.